Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a thunder damage focused Eldritch Knight build in Baldur's Gate 3. There's a bunch of thunder gear in the game as well as a whole reverberation set, so there's actually quite a few pieces of gear that we can use for this, and there's multiple weapons that'll actually add thunder damage. There's a hat that'll boost our spell save DC when we deal thunder damage, so we can actually be a decent spellcaster using scrolls, so we'll be breaking down everything in this video. Now at level 1 here, we're going to choose a fighting style, so there's actually a few really good weapons. There's two that we can use with a shield, and one two-handed weapon here, the corpsegrinder hammer, which I got on my character right now. So this does an additional 1d4 thunder damage, and it has a special weapon attack, so if you want to use that, I'd recommend great weapon fighting. There are a couple that use, you can use a shield like Nyrulna, and for that I'd recommend dueling, which will add 2 damage. I'm just going to go with the defense armor, +1 armor class is really nice. Plus, we're going to be kind of compromising on other gear later on just to boost up our overall thunder damage and output of damage. So now with our ability scores, it's a little bit tricky because this build is actually reliant on a few different things. Most of our weapons will be strength-based weapons, unless you want to use Baldur Alluve and then use the Shrieking Song to deal thunder damage that way, which doesn't apply some of our gear. This will be the stat spread we'd likely want to use if we're going to be using a two-handed weapon here. However, you can also use Strength Potion if you really want to min-max this build, and I actually like using Dexterity on this just because the boost to initiative from Dexterity is so massive. So you can use that previous stat spread, or you can use this one here with 16 Dex, 14 Constitution, 16 Intelligence, as we do have a bit of spell casting, and then 10 Wisdom and 10 Charisma. Level 2, Action Surge, free action, that's always good. Level 3 is when we get to take the Eldritch Knight now. This build is even better because in patch 8 they added Booming Blade, which is a thunder-based attack. Now Booming Blade is weird, sometimes it'll proc certain gear, sometimes it doesn't proc other gears, so we're bringing that down a little bit later in the combat section, but I'd also recommend having Mage Hand here just to be able to throw health potions. This is going to be the min-max version. Minor Illusion can be good too to have it on somebody, and if you're the face of the party, take Friends. Now, for our spells, we'll be taking a level 1. I like to have Shield, just a +5 to armor class. Great for survivability, and we're Thunder focused, so it makes sense to take Thunder Wave. Magic Missile is another really great spell here. And for the expanded, I like the Find Familiar Raven. Giving yourself a Raven, really great. You can also alternatively take like Long Strider to be able to boost up your team's movement speed. That's another great option. Level 4, we get to take another spell. We'll go with the Magic Missile. You can also take Chromatic Orb Thunder. And then for the feat, I'd recommend either go with the Dexterity improvement if you're going to use Baldur Alluve. Alert for the +5 to initiative is massive. There's actually merit in taking the dual wielder feat as well, as there's some weapons that actually do multi-class, or if you use a dual wielding build, they actually do go together very well. I prefer taking Alert at level 4. Not being surprised is huge, especially in honor mode, and also just it's good to have that there for the initiative, making sure that we do go first. Level 5, extra attack, you know the deal, it's great, where big power spike is coming through there. Level 6 gives us another feat. Now, Baldur Alluve plus another weapon can actually be really good, and for that I'd recommend the dual wielder feat if you like to use 2 weapons. However, an ability score improvement on your dexterity or your strength, depending on what you're building around, is also quite nice, or you could even go with an increase to your constitution. I also want to mention you could swap constitution and intelligence scores. Another great choice is the Savage Attacker, which lets you attack and reroll your damage die twice, which will just give you a flat-out boost to your overall damage. My personal preference is either Savage Attacker, but I'm going to go with the dual wielder here and show you what you can do with that. If you don't want to dual wield, you don't have to. You can just go with the Savage Attacker or an increase to ability scores. Level 7 is great because War Magic actually got a huge buff in patch 8. So if we start our action with Booming Blade, we can then do an attack and an attack. So it's 3 attacks and then a bonus action attack for 4 attacks per action and bonus action. That is huge. This gives us more attacks than any other class without having to do anything crazy. Now we also get to take level 2 spells here. So Scorching Ray is pretty good, but we're not going to always be hitting it. So we're actually going to take Shatter because it's thunder. So it makes sense here. I also like to take Darkness. There are some gear that we can set ourselves up with that'll actually boost this. And Thunder actually goes with Darkness really well, and you'll see in a bit later. Now, we got a couple decisions to make here. So there's some good spells that we can take, like Hold Person, which will give us free critical hits at close range. And we can, whenever we do an attack, we can do the Eldritch Strike, which will then give us the chance to apply Hold Person. Shadow Blade is psychic damage, but it can fit very well because you're going to do Booming Blade. This is going to be the highest damage version of that. I'm not going to cheese it and use it for this video. I'm going to go with Hold Person here, but that is a very powerful option as well. And I will say it's probably a lot stronger than this, but I'm not going to use it because we're thunder damage focused, and Shadow Blade just makes the game not as fun because it really makes things so much easier. Now, at this point, we go with the Dexterity improvement, or if you wanted to increase your overall Constitution, I'm going to go with Savage Attacker here because I didn't take it previously. The Tough feat is also nice to give yourselves an additional 24 health, which makes us very tanky, but I like the Savage Attacker. Just gives us a flat-out boost to our overall damage. Level 9, we get Indomitable, where you can re-roll our saving throws. It's just great for the defensively. Level 10, as mentioned previously, Eldritch Strike. So when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on its next saving throw against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. Now, this makes us a great recipient for the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, because then we can do Hold Person as a bonus action, and the target will have disadvantage on the save, so that we do land those a lot more frequently. Now, we get to take another cantrip here. Bone Chill to stop the target from receiving healing is great, and Firebolt if you use Barrel Mancy to explode things is great. Now, I'll also grab Scorching Ray at this level here. Chromatic Orb, again, being a good choice, but I guess Scorching Ray gives us a bit of range. Level 11, we get our extra attack here. This is great. Improved extra attack, really nice. I guess we'll take Gust of Wind there, because sometimes you can push people off of ledges. And then for our final level here, we got a choice to make, because we got some feats. I will mention Lucky is a really great feat here. This gives you a bit of resistance against failing attack rolls and saving throws. Again, Tough is a good choice to go with as well here. If you want to go throwing, you could use Nyrulna and Tavern Brawler. That's actually probably the true strongest build here, as the throwing builds are actually really nuts. I will mention that that is a good option. And you're probably best off taking the dexterity improvement here, or strength, whatever you took for your main attack. I'm actually going to use Tavern Brawler just to show off how powerful this really can get. And you don't have to use that, just a heads up. Now, there's actually a lot of gear that works fantastic here, and as mentioned, you can dual wield weapons. The Nyrulna is great because this gives you a 1d6 of extra thunder damage, and then you also get additional movement speed. You can throw this weapon, it comes back to your hand, and then we also have the Markoheshkir in our offhand, because Kareska's Favor is really good, because with this, we can actually use the Bone Shaking Thunder to give ourselves resistance to thunder damage. We'll do additional thunder damage on our attacks. This does apply to Booming Blade. And yeah, it's actually kind of funny because we can apply reverberation with this. If you want, you could also do the Bolts of Doom, which will give you lightning charges, which is also kind of fun. But the thunder is obviously the point of this build. Now, we also got the Hat of Storm Scion's power here. So whenever we deal thunder damage, we gain Arcane Acuity. So this is going to build up our spell save DC to give ourselves plus 10 to spell save DC. It's crazy. And what's also great is there's the Thunder Skin Cloak here, so whenever a creature with reverberation deals damage to the wearer, they must do a Constitution saving throw or become dazed. This gives them disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, so that we can do things like Hold Person and land it. Now, I also have the Armor of Persistence here, reducing damage, increasing, giving you resistance in Blade Ward, and disadvantage on stealth checks. However, if you want to be stealthy, the Armor of Agility will give you the same armor class, but you can now use you won't get disadvantage on stealth checks, and you get a +2 to saving throws. Another good choice is, I guess you could go with the, obviously, Heldesk Armor or the Reaper's Embrace there. I also like to go with, like, the Flame Enameled Armor there, or even the, you could go with the Unwanted Masterwork Scale Mail, which give you resistance to fire damage. Those are some other good options. Now, for Gloves of Bliggard Skies just makes the most sense. Whenever we do thunder damage, we apply 2 turns of reverberation on the target. That's great. It's really, really good. Now, since we already do have the, if you're going to use the Markoheshkir here, there's a crazier combination we can use, because this will apply reverberation anyways, so it's kind of useless to use them together, but we can actually interact with some cool items here. So the Coruscation Ring will apply Radiating Orbs whenever we do spell damage. Booming Blade does trigger this. However, we can go with the Callous Glow Ring whenever we deal any damage while illuminated, which Nyrulna will illuminate us. We deal additional 2 radiant damage. It doesn't say what type of damage, but it's radiant damage. So if we were to apply this here, and then also swap this out for the Luminous Gloves, we can then become a debuffer using this to apply radiant damage, and this will apply Radiating Orbs. So that's really good. And then if you wanted to even further, you could put on the Boots of Stormy Clamor, although we already are going to get that from our Markoheshkir here. I also have the Ring of Absolute Force, so if the wearer wears the Absolute's brand, they deal additional 1 thunder damage with thunder damage and attacks. This is great. However, I want to note something. You don't have to have the Absolute brand, so it's a little bit misleading, actually. But this will boost up your damage by 1, so this is a really good item you can get early on in the game. I also did mention the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel has a similar icon as this one here. This will allow us to do bonus action Hold Person, which is really good. However, we do have a bonus action attack, so you don't want to always be using that. I just want to provide that as an option there. So for this, I will use the Ring of Absolute Force plus the Callous Glow Ring. I also have the Evasive Shoes, but you can put on like the Disintegrating Nightwalkers or anything else Boots of Stormy Clamor as mentioned. And then I also got the Hellrider Longbow for the +3 to initiative. And I want to show you guys a little trick here. So as mentioned, there's the there's Corpsegrinder, which adds a 1d4 of thunder damage. There's Cacophony, the staff that gives you Thunderous Smite and additional 1d4 on the staff. We're not going to use that. It's not really that good. Nyrulna is the Act 3 item that's going to be really good for this because it does thunder damage. You can throw it, and it'll do thunder damage in a radius, and also gives you movement speed, and it gives you light so that we can proc our other gear. So this is really good. And then with the Markoheshkir here, I'm going to apply the Bone Shaking Thunder, which will apply the reverberation whenever you deal damage. You can see there. Thunder spells will deal additional thunder damage equal to proficiency bonus, and with spell damage, it inflicts 1 turn of reverberation. It's actually not 1 turn, it's actually 2. And to take this a step further, if you have the Drake Throat Glaive, you can put this on a teammate. They get the elemental weapon here, and then you can apply extra thunder damage onto their weapon. You can also put this on their bow and then use the bow arrow mini targets. This will basically give them a max spell save DC really quickly, but you can apply that additional damage there. Doesn't show when you highlight the weapon, but you see we got a 1d4, 1d6, and then a +1 thunder damage, so that's actually pretty powerful. We also have the weapon bond, but this doesn't really apply to Nyrulna since it will return to our hand when thrown, so you can put this on something else. So for our first turn of combat, what we want to do is prioritize the high value targets. Now, we actually have one very powerful attack that I do want to mention. Since we have the, this is the only way you can get Destructive Wave, is if you were to use the Markoheshkir staff, because this gives us the free cast of it. Normally, you have to play as a cleric, and you can only get it in Tempest and Light Domain clerics. This does radiant and thunder damage, which is going to also proc our luminous gloves. It'll also proc our reverberation. So I'd recommend if you can get into a position where you can use the radiant version. Note, it does say it uses a level 5 spell slot, but it doesn't actually, but it'll give you all the benefits as if you did. So that's pretty nice here. We can get a few targets here. So we're going to use this spell here because that gave us Arcane Acuity, only 2 stacks of it, but that was enough. And we applied 10 stacks of radiating orbs on this guy. I don't even have to worry about him. He ain't hitting the broadside of a barn. This target also has 10 stacks of radiating orbs. That was a very successful attack. Now we can rush with the Zephyr Flash here, but since we do have the ability to throw weapons and we see a group of enemies over here, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to throw it at this target here. We'll go with a free crit, and then we're going to do a good amount of damage. The thunder damage is kind of nice. Since we can throw 3 times per action, I may as well do that to hopefully do a bit of chip damage to take out the enemies there. There we go. We were able to finally get the radiating orbs going, so that was good there. And then I'll use my third one to attack the final character there. With radiating orbs, we want to try to apply this to as many targets as possible. So things like this are pretty nice because, yeah, you see there, we took out 2 targets. They has two turns of radiating orbs. They have 10 turns. That was good. Now we have a bonus action left, which we didn't do Booming Blade, so we didn't get the action to do that. But we also then get Action Surge, so that's great too. And with Action Surge, this lets us, I guess, finish off the remaining enemies around here. Actually, I'm going to do something a little bit different since I have that extra action. We still have our Shatter level 5 version of the spell from our staff. I'm just going to cast that because I've seen an opportunity where we can hit multiple enemies here, so I want to take that. I can hit 3 of them, unfortunately, so I'm just going to hit this one here because I want to get that target taken out. I was able to finish them off, but I was able to apply 4 turns of Radiating Orbs on that enemy, so that was a job well done. And I guess since we still have a bonus action offhand attack, I'll use my staff and bonk this character here. It was just enough to finish them off. Now, we don't have counter spells, so Psionic Dominus, if you got the Lithid abilities, will save your hide because even though we have Indomitable, we don't want to get hit with commands or hold persons. That really does mess up our flow. And they're going to miss every single attack. Oh, no, they didn't miss every single attack. They're going to miss most attacks. So now, to show you the true power, we want to use Booming Blade because this is going to give us a big buff. If it doesn't take out the enemy, it's going to do a good amount of damage. We have 6 stacks of Radiating Orbs on this enemy now because now we get a bonus action attack. So what's great about that is we can then do another attack here against this target. Boom, that was enough to take them out. And unfortunately, I forgot to unclick that and it did the bonus action attack there. That's fine though. We'll then go over here and there's another couple targets. Now, what we can also do, I just want to mention this, is because we got arrow attacks that we can do. So arrow attacks are great, especially if the thunder damage applied, because that's going to chain around and do quite a bit of damage. We've stricken them with Eldritch Inertia that was able to take out that target there. Now what we can do to really do some crazy stuff is a magic missile, because this is guaranteed damage, and I was able to apply reverberation, wasn't enough. If we had the coruscation ring on there, that would actually apply multiple stacks of radiating orbs there. I just didn't want its combat to end that quickly. So I want them to attack me, and that didn't work because we have a cloak that if they're reverberating, they can get dazed, which is really good. So dazed doesn't even really matter, but we did get the dazed off on them, so they did attack us. Our cloak did work properly. They're also stricken with Eldritch Inertia, so if we were to do something like Hold Person, you see there 99% hit chance. That's exactly what we want. We don't have a lot of spell slots, but when we do, we want to make the most of them. Scorching Ray will do critical hits here, but we obviously just going to go ahead with a Booming Blade there to finish them off. So yeah, there it is. Crazy damage on that. Thunder damage focused Eldritch Knight. A lot of fun actually, and there's so much more gear that I can actually work with this, but I just wanted to try out and find the most synergetic ones. Radiating Orbs on this build is actually pretty silly, but it's really good at debuffing, as you can see there. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.